Hey everyone, it's Dr. Matt with the Ethos Athletes podcast. And today I wanted to talk about mental performance. And for this particular episode, I wanted to bring in author and creator Brian Cain. So Brian Cain is the creator of the Mental Performance Mastery Coaching Certification course. He's a #1 best-selling author, and he's worked with a number of Forbes 500 CEOs, pro athletes, and a number of different professional organizations. And so I'm excited to have him on here so we can learn how to perform better mentally. So Brian, thanks for coming here.
Dr. Matt, thanks for having me, man. And thanks for all your work you do, keeping me moving and keeping me on the road, man. It's a pleasure.
I appreciate it. So I just got to finishing one of Brian's books. This is the 10 Pillars of Mental Performance Mastery. So there's actually a great read. So I want to commend you on the job that you did with this book.
Oh, I appreciate it. You know, that was my 42nd book, so I'd hope that by the time we got to number 42, I keep improving as a writer, and I appreciate your feedback. Hopefully you were able to take a lot of nuggets from that and apply it, right? Because ultimately the goal with writing a book is not that someone reads the book, right? The goal of writing a book is that someone takes what's in the book and applies it to their life. And that's what I'm so excited about, working with you now, Matt, and doing this podcast, is that it's all about the application.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're going to get into that. But before we get into what I learned from the book and learning how to apply what I learned, let's talk about a little bit about you. So, how did you get into this field? What are some of the exciting things you've done in it, and why do you do it at the end of the day?
Oh man, great! It's a loaded question. So I think how I got into it is. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, really influenced by my high school football coach, knew I always wanted to coach from an early age. And then I went to play college baseball at the University of Vermont, and I really struggled and failed for the first time. I had a lot of success, all state in high school and 3 sports, and you get into college and now everybody's good, right? I grew up in a small town. I wasn't good. I just wasn't playing against great competition. I was in Massachusetts, not Texas, right? It's a different deal. And get to college and I struggle. And I thought, okay, it's got to be because my nutrition's not on point. So I dialed that in. I thought it was, I'm just not working hard enough. Dialed that in. Still didn't have success. So what did? I started working harder. I was working hard at the wrong things. I was a pitcher, which is a fast twitch muscle fiber, power movement. And I was doing 5-10 miles a day of running, thinking that I had to get in better shape. And that's how I did it. So my fastball went quickly from 88 to 82. I was getting worse. I was working hard and getting worse more quickly, and it drove me nuts.
Yeah.
So one of my teammates said, hey, I'm working with a sports psychologist on campus. You should go and see her. She might be able to help, because no one else was, right? No one else really knew what to do. I was labeled the mental midget. And it wasn't that I was a mental midget. I was focusing on the wrong things. And I think as coaches, so quickly they label athletes as, oh, this guy's mentally weak. It's like, well, what does that actually mean, right?
Right.
Mental toughness is growth in the 10 pillars of mental performance mastery, which we'll talk about. And I didn't even understand that was something you could train. I thought it was all about work harder. So I'm living proof that working hard, being a great teammate, dialing in your nutrition isn't nearly enough for you to achieve athletic or life, business, any type of excellence in whatever field you choose. There's a mental performance component to being consistent, right? Yeah. Working on the right aspects of your business or your athletic career that you need to be working on, eliminating distraction, controlling what you can control, showing up every day with a focus and a purpose for what you're trying to do to improve, whether it be 1% a day. And when I remember it clear as day, July 4th, 2000, I'm at Barnes & Noble in Boston, across from Fenway Park. And I happened to be down there with a friend of mine from Alaska to celebrate July 4th, and he wanted to send his mom a postcard. So we walk in, and I go to the book section, and there's a baseball section, because it's the Barnes & Noble across from Fenway, Boston, with Red Sox. And there's a book, Heads Up Baseball, by Dr. Ken Ravizza. And I pulled the book out. It was like divine intervention. I pulled the book out, and I open it up, and there's these little black boxes, which are like cliff notes through the whole book. You can read the whole thing in 20 minutes. It was genius idea by him to do that. And I read the whole book and was like, my God, I've never heard someone talk about sports this way. Being in control of yourself before you can control your performance. Focusing on the process and winning the moment versus the outcome of winning the game. Having a great day versus having a great career. Like, it made so much sense to me. I had never heard someone speak that way. So I went back and I sent them an email from the library at the University of Vermont in 2000. I was a phys ed major now. I didn't know what right? Okay. So I sent him an email. He handwrites me a letter back 3 weeks later that says, hey, I grew up in Connecticut. If you want to be a baseball coach, come out to Fullerton, and you'll be able to get a master's here in sports psychology. I work with a lot of baseball teams. You'll get to see me do work. And you could be a grad assistant baseball coach with Cal State Fullerton. Now, Cal State Fullerton is like the Duke basketball of college baseball, right? They won the national championship in '04. They've been the most successful program maybe in the country. So I go out there, I do a master's in sports psychology with Ken Ravizza. I'm a grad assistant baseball coach with Cal State Fullerton, thinking I want to be a pitching coach, and I fall in love with the mental game. I fall in love with Dr. Ravizza's teaching, which is essentially the 10 pillars of mental performance mastery.
Okay.
What I didn't realize, Dr. Matt, going out there was I was going to do my master's with John Wooden. I was going to do my master's with the pioneer and the guy that essentially created the field of applied sports psychology, right? So when you put sports psychology, and you imagine a triangle, there's 3 domains. There's research, which is giving surveys to people and asking them how they feel or how they played or whatever, and taking that data and writing an article. There's clinical, which is the body image, eating disorder, drug, alcohol, which I'm not trained to address, so I don't. And then there's performance, routines, confidence, consistency, time management, sort of that life skill and positive psychology, optimal performance side of the field. And that's where Ken is the best there's ever been and the best there ever will be. So I studied under him. I've got 2 pictures here in my office, which I would show you. It's my wife and I at our wedding day, and me and Ken in Dodger Stadium when I was working with TCU and he was working with Vanderbilt, and we played against each other.
That's cool. Right on.
Really cool. And he passed away in July of 2018. And I think it was the New York Times that the headline was "The Godfather of Sports Psychology, Ken Ravizza, passes away at 70." So that's kind of how I got into it, because I had my own struggles. And, I then went back after graduating from Fullerton into '03. I go back to Vermont. I'm a high school teacher. I'm an athletic director, assistant principal for 8 years. And then I'm doing the sports psychology thing like every weekend. And I was traveling 50 weekends out of the year to go do work, whether it was a UFC fight. And, so what are some of my highlights, right? Cornering George St. Pierre in a UFC fight, going to the College World Series, working with Heisman Trophy winners, 2 Cy Young Award winners. And I'm on the road every weekend. And finally, I had to make a decision between, I love being a high school athletic director because you get to teach, but I really love doing this mental performance consulting piece. It's a different avenue. You're on the road 280 days a year versus you're in your office 280 days a year with the same people. So I just thought my ultimate mission in life, Dr. Matt, is to educate, empower, and energize as many other people as possible to be their best. And I thought that by me getting out and working with coaches was what I would have a bigger impact in the world than me working with the front line and the athlete, or as in a school as an athletic director. I felt like I was kind of handicapped in terms of bringing my message out, that I couldn't get it out to as many people. So the reason for the storybook that you have, and the inspirational fiction book that you have on the 10 pillars of mental performance mastery and the certification course is exactly this. My mission in life is to certify 10,000 coaches over the course of my lifetime that each touch 1,000 lives. That's 10 million people, 10 million lives that we impact together through the 10 pillars of mental performance mastery. And if I can get that on my gravestone or come close to it, I feel like I've lived a fulfilled life.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You would have definitely made an impact on the world doing that. I completely agree with it. So let's get into a little bit of the stuff that you talk about in the book, and hopefully inspire some of our listeners here today. So the one of the pillars that you talk about in the book, and I'm going to go in the book's order that you define them as. You mentioned having an elite mindset versus an average mindset. So kind of give us a little bit idea of what that looks like and how you specifically apply that to your life. That way, our listeners can get an idea of a live example.
For sure. And if I can I share my screen here? Because this is a video podcast, so people can see something if I share my screen. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's perfect. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to, let's see if I can actually pull this out. Let's see. Everybody gets to see my computer. Boom. Here we go. I was thinking earlier that you might ask me this question. So here's the difference, I think, between an average mindset and elite mindset. And Matt, I think it would be great if you could put this in your show notes, right?
I would love this.
Like, here's a great description, and it's right from the book and the certification course, that people with an average mindset get into this negative type of thinking and negative type of behavior. People with an elite mindset look at adversity as their advantage, right? People with an elite mindset understand that, like Carol Dweck, the professor at Stanford, in her research around the growth mindset, is that just like a muscle can grow, like a body can change based off of what you feed it nutritionally, based off of how you move it with exercise, that your mindset can grow the same way. Your mindset can grow based off of the podcasts you listen to, the books that you read, the people that you interact with, and the experiences that you have. And so many times we hear, especially I did growing up, that, well, that's just the way it is. You know,
Right.
you stressed me out, and you're just all of a sudden now giving everyone else, you stressed me out, the power over you to influence you, basically like a puppeteer, or you're thinking that you can't grow or you can't achieve a certain thing. That's a fixed mindset. And the growth mindset, the elite mindset, is understanding that, things don't often happen for a reason.
Mhm.
Okay. There's a reason why things happen. And the reason why things happen is often traced back into a pattern of behaviors, a pattern and a way of thinking over a long period of time. I didn't go from 240 pounds to 185 pounds, not being able to run a quarter of a mile, to signing up to do a 100-mile run for just because it happened. It
Right.
happened because I hit rock bottom, and I had to come up with a plan, and I had to get coaching, and I had to get around the right people like yourself, to help make sure that I was doing what elite people did if they want to pursue whatever their field is. So I think the people with the growth mindset understand that they can do it. They just maybe can't do it yet.
Yeah.
Where the average mindset people would say, well, that's impossible. I can't do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great that you define that really well. One of the things that really stuck with me on when I was reading this particular part of the book with growth mindset was rephrasing things from have to, which was the average mindset, to get to or want to, right? So instead of saying, oh, I have to go work out, oh no, I get to work out, or I want to work out. And being able to just make those little changes, I think, what has such a big impact on your attitude towards the activity.
Oh, one of the things Ken Ravizza used to say all the time, my mentor, is attitude is a decision. The attitude you take is a decision you make. And he would say that the way that you think is going to affect how you behave, and how you behave is going to affect how you feel. And
Yeah.
a lot of people will say, well, I want you to feel better. And they start going after a feeling instead of going after a behavior, right?
Yeah.
What you think can dictate how you behave, which will impact how you feel. So I always go after the way we're thinking and the behavior, because I know that that's the pathway to wanting to feel better, which is what everyone is after. It's why there's substance abuse. It's why people exercise, right? Because they're chasing a feeling. Well,
Right.
understand that the behavior and the thought process is what's going to lead to that feeling. And if you're saying I have to, change that to I want to or I get to, and just watch how that changes your entire world. It just a simple one-word change, a simple way that you talk to yourself, like thinking that adversity is something that we run away from, versus changing your mentality that adversity is what we run towards because it's where we find out about ourselves.
Right. That's where we grow.
Totally different mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, and I love that. I mean, so that's an example of the elite mindset, which was the first pillar that's mentioned in the book.
Yes.
Now, the next one that you talk about is leadership. So tell me more about that, pillar number 2.
Well, so pillar number 9 is leadership.
Yeah, pillar number 9. Yeah.
Do you want to go to 9, or do you want to go to 2, motivation and commitment?
Let's go to 9. Stick with leadership.
Okay, so if you want to go to leadership, and before we go into leadership, I will share this, that anyone listening to this that wants to come up with a very simple growth plan. Okay, so a simple growth plan in any of the 10 pillars would be to ask yourself, what am I doing well? What do I want to do better? How am I going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Another growth plan that we use is called a start, stop, continue. What behaviors do I need to start doing? What behaviors do I need to stop doing? What behaviors must I continue? Because one of the fastest ways to optimize your life is to simply stop doing things that are suboptimal. So if you're looking to grow your mindset, ask yourself, what am I doing well? What do I want to do better, and how? Or what do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? And what do I want to continue doing? Because we're all living aspects of these 10 pillars. We're just maybe not intentional about it, and we're maybe not, doing it with a plan. We're just happen to be doing it. So, for example, when we look at pillar 9, leadership,
yeah,
I was really influenced by Urban Meyer, the former Ohio State football coach. He won a national championship at Ohio State and Florida. Yeah. And Urban Meyer, in his book Above the Line, talks about, through influence with Brian and Tim Kite of the Focus 3 group in Columbus, Ohio, that leadership is your ability to do 2 things: build trust and get results. Yeah. And people will go to you and be able to follow you, and you can influence and impact and lead them if they trust you. And trust is a byproduct of 3 things. If you think about a triangle, trust is a byproduct of your connection with, comes from time and shared adversity. It's a byproduct of your character, on people who morally trust you, and do you have their best interest at heart? Right. And then your competence. How skillful are you? How skillful are you as a doctor to be able to help your clients close the gap from where they are to where they want to be? Or as a, say, a personal trainer to help your clients close the gap from where they are to where they want to be. That takes what we would call competence. That takes knowledge, skill. The only reason why I've got a member of the Chicago Blackhawks coming over to the house here in a couple hours is to get ready to play the Coyotes tomorrow. One of the guys I've worked with this year. And I said, you guys have your own guy that travels with you. There's guys a lot closer to where you live in Chicago. He's just this dude, you're the most competent and to be able to give me the strategies I need to close the gap from where I am to where I want to be. So if people can trust you, but if you don't have the competence to help them, then eventually they're not going to trust you anymore and they're going to go to someone else.
Yeah, no, and I really liked how that was broken down in the book, where it was, trust results. And that's, you sum up leadership that way.
Getting results. If we look at another triangle, right? And again, this focus 3 concept, triangle on the bottom, whoop, triangle on top. The triangle on top is if you want to get results, it comes down to clarity, accountability, and support. Do you have clarity of what you want and clarity of how to get there? Are you accountable to a plan and accountable to anybody else? Because the easiest person to quit on is yourself.
Right.
And then do you have the support in terms of mentors and other people to help you get to where you want to go? That's how results are achieved. But a lot of times we don't have the clarity. We don't set us up with the support that we need, the mentors, and then we're just not accountable. We get lazy.
Yeah. And in the leadership part, you also mentioned, I believe it was mission, vision, principles, correct?
Yeah. So the thing about the pillars is they're not, I write it in 10 pillars and think very isolated, but they're not. It's like a big Venn diagram. There's overlap. So we introduced the MVP process in leadership because great leaders have an MVP process, but then we really flush out the MVP process for you individually in an organization within pillar 10, which is the right culture. So the MVP process, okay, and this might be the most important thing that I think you can do as a leader is identify what's the mission, what's the vision, what are my core principles. Now, I worked in 3 different schools as a teacher, an athletic director, assistant principal, and in each of the schools, they used the term mission and vision like interchangeably. So in one school, what was the mission was the vision in the other school, right? So it's like we got to define what mission, vision, and principles mean. So let me simplify it for you. Mission is what do you want on your gravestone? There's no finish line. You'll never achieve it.
Okay.
Vision is your resume. Very clear finish line. You either achieve it or you don't. Okay. And then the principles are like a core value or a character trait that you have to embody and live moment to moment to give you that best chance to achieve your mission and vision. So let me share with you an example. Yeah. I've talked about my mission, what I want on my gravestone, and this will evolve over time as I have kids, I'm sure. But as my mission right now is educate, empower, and energize other people to be their best. That's what I want on my tombstone. Yeah. Educate, empower, and energize other people to be their best. My vision is I want to run 100 miles June 1st. I'll either do it or I won't. I want to do the Ultraman 3 Ironman triathlons in 3 days in March of 2020 here in Cave Creek, Arizona. I'll either do it or I don't. I want to empower 10,000 coaches with the mental performance mastery certification. I'll either do it or I won't. Okay. I want to maintain body fat percent under 10 and weight under 190, which when I was about 25% and 240, I'm like, I'm never going to get there. Small decisions over time. You can do anything. So I'm either, I get my body fat tested with a DEXA scan. You either are or you're not, man. Right. That's a vision, right? And then the principles to be able to get there would be, for myself, what I call the acronym DELP. Discipline, energy and excellence, love, and then present, process, and productive. Okay. So discipline as defined as having a plan and sticking to it. Energy as defined as being a positive force and empowering others. Excellence is defined as being at your best, working to be your best on a consistent basis. Love defined as unconditionally giving of yourself and expecting nothing in return. So you have to define your core principles. So as you go looking at creating an MVP process, it follows 5 steps. Uh-huh. Number 1, identify your mission, vision, and principles. Okay. Number 2, define your core principles. Because imagine, Matt, walking into Arizona State's football program. They got 120 guys in there. You go in as a coach and you say, you know what? Or even in your office, you say, we're going to be about family. Well, dude, everyone's had different family experiences. Yeah, for sure. What does that mean? Some people would jump on the grenade for their family. Others would throw it in their direction, right? So you've got to really define what it means in the context of your situation. Otherwise, people will get lost. So identify, define. Step 3 would be then describe what the above the line and below the line behaviors of living your principles look like. Above the line behaviors, again, are going to help you win. Below the line is going to help you lose.
Right.
And then number 4 is assess how you're living, and assess how you're living above the line or below the line with your principles. Because if you're not assessing, you're just going through the motions. It's going to be hard to grow. It's like the difference between exercise and conditioning. Exercise is I go move around. Conditioning is I know what my bench press is, I know where I want it to be, and I have a plan and I test and measure throughout the process.
Okay.
And step 5 is I create a growth plan. And we've already talked about how simple a growth plan can be to create.
Yeah.
Well, how, start, stop, continue in any of those 10 areas, and now you got yourself a growth plan.
Awesome. I love that. I love the way you laid that out. I think that's very actionable and easy to go ahead and start working on.
It's got to be, man. You know, one of my favorite things I ever did was teach elementary school phys ed for a very short period of time as a student teacher. And I'm like, if I could just take it and make everything I teach this as simple as it is for these kids, I think I'd have a lot more success.
For sure.
Right, like I'm writing to a 5th grader, or speak or coach like I'm coaching to a 5th grader, and it makes it easier for people because people are busy, man. They don't want to have to sift through and go, what is he really talking about? Like I don't want to be a professor here, man. I want to be a coach and teacher and make it simple.
For sure. No, that's perfect. So the MVP process you said leads to culture, which is the next pillar that you talked about in your book. So tell us a little bit more about culture and really you know, how you work as a leader to go in and improve that.
Sure. So again, the start like with leadership is individually making your own MVP process.
Yeah.
And then as a culture, it's as an organization making your MVP process. Mm-hmm. So I can show you some examples. Is that probably going to help?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me do it. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to come up to, that's not it. There you go. We have to maybe edit that out. But so here's my 168. I map out what I'm going to do with every day. That's another plan. That's pillar 7. But if I go to my MVP process, and you'll see, here's my personal MVP process, right? So I've got, here's my life mission. Here's my life vision. Here's my quarterly vision. So I have what life vision, what I want to get done long-term, quarterly vision, what I want to get done in the next, the first 90 days of 2019, which we're at right now, and in 3 areas: in my area of energy, my area of service or work, and then with my family. So I've got my personal goals, I've got my core principles and things like that. Now, if we want to look at a team example, let me show you one of the top. Let me show you one of the top softball teams in the country, LSU softball. So here's the LSU softball MVP process. So again, you have a personal one, and then you have a team one. So here's the team one. So at LSU softball, I think they're number 8 right now in the country, number 7 in the country. The mission of the program is to create Tigers for life.
Okay.
And Tigers is an acronym, if you go down to the core principles, for developing people that are trustworthy and believe in our process, that have integrity and do what's right, that have grit, long-term perseverance, that are full of energy and bring the juice, right? They're relentless and always on the attack as an athlete, and they're selfless. They put Louisiana State ahead of you, or Louisiana State over you. So that's their core principles, and their mascot is Tigers. When you look at their vision, they want to win the moment, win the weekend series, win their conference, win 45 games, make host and win a regional, make host and win a super regional, go to the College World Series in Oklahoma City, win the national championship, graduate from college, and then live Tigers for life. So it's very clear for their head coach, Beth Torina, the mission of the program, whether we win or lose, is we're trying to make Tigers for life. The vision of the program and what we're all about, so we can have a shared vision and goals, is all right here. How we're going to do it is our set of our core principles. And then what we're working on now is, okay, what does it look like to live Tigers above the line? What does it not look like below the line? Right? So it's very simple. It's very clear. And with clarity comes consistency. And with consistency comes winning. So when you're trying to create the right culture, let's identify what a culture is. A culture is a set of beliefs that drive a behavior that produce a result.
Okay.
So the set of beliefs you just saw for LSU softball is, we believe that this is the vision we're after, why we're all here. We believe that the big reason why we're all here is to create Tigers for life. We believe that Tigers, our core principles, is what we're after. and how we live. So if we believe that if we live tigers every day, we give ourselves the best chance to achieve that vision. Remember, it's a belief that drives a behavior that produces a result. Now, are we behaving? We believe tigers is the path.
Right.
Are we behaving on the path? Are we living tigers? And then we take the result that we've got, and they've been, I think, the 3 of the last 4 Women's College World Series, haven't won it yet, but their belief is driving a behavior and producing a result. Now, do they live it moment to moment every single day? Well, that's impossible. But
Right.
at least they're aware and they're intentional, and it's like a GPS. Every time someone gets off course, they go, hey, man, that's below the line, get back on. Or, hey, that's not tiger, get back to being tiger. And when they see something that's done the right way, so for example, when I show up to campus and I'm working with a team and I go, man, I got to get a sandwich. Where can I get a sandwich? One of the players goes, oh, it's down in our cafeteria. Let me walk you down there. And she walks me down. She walks me back up. And her coach goes, oh, you just walk Brian down to get a sandwich? That's tiger.
Okay.
Which means that's above the line behavior, right? Which is a concept that we took from Theo Epstein, voted the greatest leader in the world, the GM of the Chicago Cubs, where they talked about growing their culture. And when someone would do something the right way, they'd say, that's Cub.
Okay.
And then catch them doing it right instead of catching them doing it wrong. Now, they'll address it when something's going wrong and below the line, but more importantly, we're looking at that's what we want. That's the behavior we're after. That's tiger. That's Cub.
That's awesome. No, I love that. And the way it's organized, you had it organized there, I think is super beneficial for anyone that's in that position to go and sit down and make that, right? Like a lot of times people don't know a good starting point. So knowing what that document looks like and an example is super helpful.
Oh, Dr. Matt, I tell you, with the college coaches I work with, the CEOs of companies, I don't know how you can even think about starting to lead without that.
Yeah.
How can you start to lead without a mission, vision, and principles in terms of this is why we're all here, bigger picture, other than making money or winning games, because that's not going to be motivating for very long.
Right.
And then here's what we want to get done because there's a results component of everything that we do that's important. And then here's the behaviors we have to live at the ground level and surface level of how we need to behave every day. And a lot of times what they just go after is they go, we got to make X, we got to win this, but there's no plan into how to do it. So it's like saying, we're going to win a championship. It's up here in the clouds. Well, you know what? Take it from the clouds. It's like saying we got to have mental toughness. We'll take it from the clouds and put the seed in the ground and plant 10 pillars of mental performance, the seeds in the ground, and water them and nurture them so that they can grow.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I mean, for me personally, I've always respected the teams that, like one of the reasons I like Duke basketball is because they, they want to win championships, but the coaching staff there wants to produce just good people, right? And how do you succeed in life outside of basketball and make an impact on the world outside of basketball? And that's, I always admire stuff like that. They clearly have a good MVP process in place.
Yeah, totally. And one of my favorite books is called Legacy, about the New Zealand All Blacks, the rugby team of the country of New Zealand, the international team. And my mentor, Ken Ravizza, used to go work with them. And one of the things they would always talk about is better people make better All Blacks. And the All Blacks have won more than any organization. They've won like 92% of their matches since they became an organization. They've been number 1 in the world longer than every other country combined. They're the most dominant sports team in any arena that there's ever been. And 2 of their core principles are better people make better All Blacks and sweep the shed. Like there's no job too small for an All Black, and All Blacks don't need anyone else to pick up after them because they pick up for themselves.
Yeah, that's great. So then let's talk about, so we talked about leadership, talked about culture, we talked about the elite mindset. The next pillar that you mentioned in your book is motivation and commitment. So tell us a little bit more about that. And to me, it seemed like it was it was going and making sure you're measuring everything that you're doing and sticking to that, right?
Yeah, well, pillar 2 is pillar 2 is motivation and commitment. And a big part of that is that measurement is motivation. Again, it's the difference between just I work out and I exercise, or I'm in a straight conditioning program. And the conditioning program is there's tests and there's measurements. And if you don't have any measurements in your life, like how do you know if you're improving? What are you comparing your new self to your old self? You're just kind of going through the motions. You might be improving, but it's not going to be as noticeable. It's not going to be as rapid, and it's not going to be as rewarding as if you have a baseline to compare it to. So measurement is motivation, and measuring things in your life is going to provide a foundation for motivation and commitment. The other piece to motivation and commitment that I think is so critical is understanding and having clarity around why you do what you do.
Yeah.
And your why and your what. What do you want? and why do you want it? And if people can't answer, like I often, when I do one-on-one coaching, I won't start the process until people say, this is clearly what I want and this is why I want it. And if why they want it doesn't jive with me, then I'll often try to get them to somebody who it does jive with, because I've got to kind of be in alignment with them, right? And I'm fortunate to be at a place in my career where I have that option. I didn't always have that option, but I can't really help someone with one-on-one coaching unless they know what they want and why they want it. Unless they want the introductory session of just coming in cold going, well, what do you want? Well, I don't know. Well, think about it and get back to me.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what you want. Why do you want it? Well, I don't know. Okay, think about it and get back to me. And literally, I've done that many times early in my career, where it was like a 2-minute phone call twice. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way, man. Because in terms of helping people come with what they want and why they want it, that's the foundation of motivation and commitment. Because without the motivation and commitment, it doesn't matter if I give them all the strategies in the world. Right. If they don't know why and that they want it or what they want, they're not going to be motivated to implement those strategies on a daily basis, because growth is hard. And if you want more, you got to become more.
Right.
And becoming more takes work, right? It's called the miracle of life. What's the miracle of life? Labor. You got to put work in to produce miracles. It's not going to happen by accident.
For sure. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And it's like you said, having, sometimes people go and say, okay, well, it's to, their motivation is to make more money. But I mean, that's short term, like that lasts for so long for most people, right? Like that's not super inspiring by any means.
There's a lot of miserable millionaires, man, because they're chasing sex instead of chasing a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I think, like you said, defining that purpose is the backbone to everything. Cause that's the best question one of the best questions I've been asked when I was working on stuff just for my business is, what is it that makes you run to work and why are you running to work? And that's, it goes in line with what you're talking about here. What is it that's motivating? So the next pillar that you mentioned in the book was focus and awareness. And what I really liked about this part was when you talked about being 100% present in the moment and winning. I think it was winning the moment, if I remember correctly. Tell us a little bit about this.
So win the moment is an acronym, right? Win is an acronym, which stands for what's important now. Mm-hmm. So I have these. Do I have one here? I think I might have just given my last one away. Oh, I got it right here. Wait, how about this? You're gonna love this. So I have this band, these little baller bands, right? Or we call them the silicone.
Nice.
Band. And inside of the band, it says, win the moment. And win the moment is just a reminder that what's important now is the moment. What's important now is be where your feet are. What's important now in the NCAA basketball tournament is this possession. What's important now in baseball is this pitch. What's important now as a doctor is this patient right here, right now.
Right.
Not about the next patient or the previous patient or everything that's going on chaotically, because we all got stuff going on personally. How can you take and compartmentalize and go, I got this going on personally, let me put it in a box, stick it over here, and go execute on what I need to execute as a professional. And then when I'm done, I'll go open the box and deal with what's happening in my personal life. So how do I separate who I am from what I do, separating the who and the do? And that takes an awareness of recognizing what I would call your signal lights, another concept I picked up from Ken Ravizza. And signal lights is probably the best and most simple analogy I've come up for awareness. Mm-hmm. So green light, when you're driving a car, you go. Red light, you stop. Yellow light, you look over. You look in the rearview mirror for a police officer. You're looking left, gauging how far you are from the light, and then you make a decision and take action, right?
Yeah.
If you think about a signal light, green means I'm in control of myself. And I got to be in control of myself before I can control my performance. Yellow means I'm losing control. Red means I've lost control. And a lot of times when people embarrass themselves, when they lose clients, when they lose business or lose games, is because they get into yellow and red lights and they don't have the awareness that they're not present. They don't have the awareness that they're not in control. They don't have the awareness of what their signals, their language, their body language is saying, and they beat themselves.
Yeah.
So the key of focus and awareness is, can you focus on things you can control? Because that's all you can influence. You cannot influence anything. You shouldn't say that. You can influence things you can't control, but but the way you influence things you can't control is by controlling the things you can control.
Right.
And maximizing the things you can control. So understanding what I can control, what I can't, or what I can control and what I can influence through what I can control, and dominating the things you can control because they're within your control. So a lot of them are choices.
Yeah.
And having the focus to know, can I control this or not? Having the awareness to know, am I present or not? And being able to refocus. And I think a bigger skill than being able to focus is being able to refocus. Because in today's day and age, Dr. Matt, you're gonna get blindsided by whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah.
You know,
How many times does this go off in a day, right?
You went off in our podcast. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to dinner with my wife. I have to strategically place myself where I cannot see a TV behind her. Not because I don't love her and want to pay attention. It's just because I get sucked into the TV.
Yeah.
Because there's so many changing colors and what's going on. And so I don't have the focus to be able to stay in this conversation when all that's going on, right?
Right.
It's really hard, especially if I'm fatigued from doing a lot of training. I just kind of, it's easier, entertain me. So
Right.
I have to have the awareness to go, okay, TV, let me sit on that side of the table so I don't even see it.
Yeah, no, and that's great. I mean, and there's so many ways to practice this. I mean, and throughout the day, and a big one is just getting rid of this, right? Like,
Totally.
I know, yeah, I mean, when I'm with patients, you know, there's definitely like that stays in my drawer the entire time. And, you know, then I go at the end of the day, you know, once I'm done and I go and look at all the notifications I have. So, oh my God, this would be super distracting if I had this out.
Totally. And I actually read an article that mentioned every time you get distracted, right? So go back to when your phone buzzed. Okay. So your phone buzzed and now we don't hear it anymore.
Right.
We're still thinking about it.
Right.
I got to turn my phone off. I'm going to have to edit that out, whatever it is, right? Or we leave it in here and now we're going back to it. So there's a thing that's real. It's called attention residue. And attention residue is when you see something, when you hear something, and you put it away, it still lives in your brain. You're still thinking about it. It's like for the people listening to this, think about when you go, I'm just going to scan my email one more time as I'm laying in bed, and you get that scathing email from a client, or if you're a coach, from a parent or an athlete or whatever it is, or you read this article online and they're like, that's not even remotely accurate.
Right.
And now you're sitting there and you're going, and you put the phone away, but then you can't sleep because you're stewing about it.
Right.
How many times
I got to get up and do something.
All the time. And then you start getting into the bad funnel and the cycle of being behind in sleep and what that brings on. And you're just in a bad cycle. And I see a lot of people that just can never break the cycle.
Yeah.
Can't break the cycle because they use this as an alarm clock and they put it in their bed and they're on it at night and they don't have the orange light on, or they're not wearing the blue blocker glasses. And next thing you know, they can't secrete the melatonin, they can't fall asleep. And then they're just walking around like a zombie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, getting rid of that makes a big difference. That's for sure.
At least managing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Managing it. Yeah.
Saying to yourself, okay, I'm just this would be what I would suggest if we were working together. I'd say, okay, how long are your appointments? They're 45 minutes. Okay, at the end of the day, schedule an appointment with yourself.
Yeah.
Stay in your routine, stay in the office. Your last appointment is with yourself, and you do what I call clear to neutral. This is going to be talked about underneath our time management organization pillar of pillar number 8. And clearing to neutral is I go through all my texts, all my phone calls, all my emails, my Instagram, my Twitter feed, and I map out my 168, my plan of how I want to attack tomorrow. And then I don't go back into it for the rest of the day. And I'm done, and I can be present, and I can go live my life, not being distracted or pulled into what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. That's going and making that appointment for yourself. You know, that's just one of the ways you check in with yourself and are able to go in and become a better person, right? And grow on your own.
Totally. Make appointments with yourself and keep them, man. It's one of the fundamental habits of people who are worldly successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So you also talk about, was it process? Yeah, process over outcome.
That's pillar number 5, process over outcome.
Which you discussed a little bit already, but I mean, go ahead and explain a little bit more in detail.
Sure. So everybody wants the outcome, and outcomes are real. Coaches get fired because they don't get outcomes, right? So people lose their job because they don't get outcomes. People go to other doctors because doctors don't get them outcomes, okay? But people have to understand that the outcome is simply a byproduct. If you think about a staircase, the outcome is a byproduct of all these little steps within the process that you take. So what becomes most important is what's my next step in the process? And when I hit that, take the next step, 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 and I will give myself the best chance to get my outcome. So process over outcome is really understanding in maybe a more simple term, is what's my telescope goal? What's my telescope outcome goal that I'm after? Let's say make $1 million. Okay, clear. I can see it. I want to make $1 million this year. Well, what's the microscope in the process, the staircase that I have to follow to give me the best chance to get that telescope goal? And the microscope goal comes down to like, okay, what are my goals for this quarter, this month, this week, this day, this hour? What am I got to get done right here, right now, today, in this week, in this month, in this quarter to give me the best chance to make the $1 million I want in this year? So the process is I have all these targets, and then I just go to work moment to moment to moment. It's why it says win the moment, not win the championship.
Right.
The championship will take care of itself if you just stick into the moment. And that's why, when I first started getting into the ultra endurance world, whether it's Ironman or, ultra runs of 100 miles or whatever, it's the ultimate process.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate process. I mean, I signed up for my first Ironman in 2016, 90 days before the race. I didn't own a bike and I didn't know how to swim. And I went for my first run and I ran about 3 miles, and I came back and I said to my wife, I go, I can't believe what I just done. I can't believe I got myself into this. Couldn't even run more than 3 miles. And so I eliminated like any alcohol. I eliminated, having a glass of wine at night, wasn't doing it for the next 3 months. I eliminated everything. I hired an assistant so I could sleep more and they would do some of the work. I got an indoor bike and I got a treadmill desk and I started doing everything I could. I hired a coach to position me to be able to finish this race in 90 days. And it was life-changing because it was the ultimate process that if you have a plan and you execute the plan, you will give yourself the best chance for the result. And I still remember jumping into Tempe Town Lake that day, November 17th, 2016. November 20th, 2016. I had double check.
Yeah. You're good.
November 20, 2016. Excuse me. And I'm like, I'm not finishing this thing. I don't think I can do it. But I had hit every one of my training sessions for the last 90 days. And okay. I trusted my training and I was able to jump in there and finish. So, there's this element of fear, right? People are like, oh, you got to believe and conceive and then you can achieve. And I'm like, you know what? I didn't believe I was finishing that Ironman. But the thing I did was I trusted my training.
Yeah.
The more than having some just random belief is you better have a really good preparation process. So rather than saying believe, conceive, and achieve, which is motivational speaker-ish, I would say separation is in preparation. Show me your goal of what you want. Show me your process to achieve that goal. And then show me your calendar of what you're doing in the next 24 hours to take one step towards getting there. And if you don't have those 3 pieces, you're probably not getting your goal.
Yeah, that's fair. And how many Ironmans have you done since then?
I've done 3 full and probably 12 half. I got the itch, man. Once you get going once, then my wife got into it. And she's sitting right there riding the bike indoors laughing at me. Once you do one, and you're like, man, I feel really good. I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life. I like the community. I like the energy. I like riding a bike more than I do watching TV. I'm like, what did I used to do with my life before triathlon? I used to work a lot more, that's for sure. But
yeah.
Yeah, I still do it, man. I've got one April 1st. I got one April 8th. I'm doing 9 halves this year. I'm doing a full. I just signed up for a full actually in Arizona. So yeah, I'm excited, man. It's good. They got 100 miles June 1st, and I won't do it forever. I want to get into golf. I'm ready to start playing golf.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's for the right now where I'm at in my life. I feel like I'm living mental performance mastery in the 10 pillars more than I ever have. I feel like I'm better at teaching other people because I am living what I'm doing on a daily basis. People see it. I document the 6-7 hours a day of training that I'm doing, and I talk about what I'm learning as I'm doing it. And it's amazing how many people will ask me questions about that stuff that are non-triathletes. It's just that they want to understand, how do you do that? I'm like, well, you just put one foot in front of the other. You set a goal and go, and don't quit.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. It's all process, right? That's the important piece. And I know you also mentioned one of the last times we talked about all the ultra marathons that you do and stuff like that as well. I mean, like hats off to you for all that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's everybody has a reason why, right? And my why is probably even more so than the physical health benefit. My why is the connection with other people. I mean, every time I see you, I'm like, when are we going for a run? When are you going to get a bike? When are we going to go get it? And last weekend I was in College Station, Texas with the Marquette women's basketball program, getting ready for their NCAA, first and second round tournament games. And I had to do a 32-mile run, and I probably had six people, including the president and coaches and
Yeah,
fans, that just were like, "Oh, you got to run? Oh, I can't do 32, but I'll get some with you." And just the relationship and the connections that you make with those people through shared adversity and through exercise. I mean, and 10 years ago it would have been, "Hey, let's grab a drink at the bar," and then I wouldn't be able to remember anything we were talking about. And
yeah.
now the relationships are much better because it's through exercise. It's being out and moving around.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great community to be around, and a great way. I mean, great way to just to bond with people, right? You like you said, going through adversity with them, like that's
Totally. I mean,
fantastic.
I think connection comes from two things. I think connection, and I like to speak with my hands because it makes pictures. I think connection comes from two things. It comes from time and it comes from shared adversity.
Yeah,
Shared adversity, which, exercise is a form of that. You're also getting time. That's going to help make a connection. And that's what life is all about, man, is a connection to human being. And if a life can touch a life through this podcast, which can touch a life in their house or touch a life in their career or their business, then we're doing our job.
yeah. No, that's perfect. Next pillar you mentioned, I think, is the one that people tend to struggle with the most, and that's when we talk about self-discipline and self-control, right? I mean, I know how many times have we heard of someone who they want to start doing all the right things, they start, and then a few weeks later they drop off. To talk to us a little bit more about this pillar.
Sure. I think, the ability of self-control, again, comes back to the Ken Revisa's teaching of you got to be in control of yourself before you can control your performance. And the number one way to be in control of yourself, oxygenate your brain by taking a deep breath.
Yeah.
Where this pillar ties in with the pillar around meditation and mental imagery is that if you simply can sit, and it's why if you look at athletes we'll work with, like, I think if I can put video I can show here. Let me show you a video here this weekend. Let's see.
Yeah.
Perfect. Here we go. So George St. Pierre, UFC 2-division champion, arguably the greatest MMA fighter of all time. George comes back to his corner after a round. Okay? Can you hear the announcers on that if I play that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So he's going to come back to his corner. He's in a title fight, 5-round fight, first round. He gets a jab into the eyeball or a thumb into the eyeball, and he can't see out of one of his eyes. He's got to fight another 20 minutes against the number one contender in the world, and he can't see. He comes back. He's in red, yellow lights. His corner man, Greg Jackson, comes in. He goes, "George, I want you to breathe. Breathe. Slow your breathing down," to get him back in control of himself, because he's either going to go fight the next 20 minutes or he's going to lose the fight on a disqualification where he says, "I can't fight anymore because I can't see," right? So he's got to be able to handle the adversity of not being able to see. He's got to refocus himself back to, I can see out of one eye. If I can see out of one eye, I'm fine. Let's go fight. And just listen to how in this corner, his coach calms him down through breathing. This is self-control 101. Let's take a look.
Deep breaths, George. Deep breaths. No. Yeah, no, it's enough. It's enough. You're not cut. You're not even cut. Hey, sit down. Hey, calm your breathing down. It doesn't matter. You got one eye, it's fine. Listen to me, George. Ignore that. You've got one eye, you're fine. Okay? Look at me. Fine. You can see me, you can see the punch. Now listen. Relax. Calm down. Find your center. That's it, George. Good job. Okay. That was an excellent round.
Right? So you can see that he's coming back. He's got hit in the eye. Lots of adversity. Like, you're not only are you in a fight, now you got to fight with one eye against the best guy in the world at the time. So his coach is saying, well, before I can put this guy back out there to fight, he's got to get back in control of himself. How you get in control of yourself would be through breathing. And one of the most simple forms of doing that is imagine a box. Okay. So imagine a box.
Yeah.
A 5x5 box. So those four sides, it would be inhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So what you literally would do is take your phone, open up the stopwatch app or the timer app, and literally look at it and inhale for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 5, hold for 5. Try that for 1 minute. And then after a couple of days or a week, do 2 minutes and keep building up until you realize that you can slow your heart rate down. You can bring yourself more present. You can activate your parasympathetic nervous system, all simply through breathing. So that's the self-control piece. So if you watch, like, that's in the corner of an MMA fight. If you watch a baseball example, you'll see hitters look at the label of their bat, take a deep breath, and get in the box, which means they're in control. Let me share another example here.
Yeah.
So here's Kurt Suzuki, baseball player now in the major leagues, but you'll see the difference between him in 2003 and him in 2004. In 2004, you see a big deep breath, and in 3, he rushes right through when he would take that breath. Now we add deep breath to help him be in control of himself. He's got to have the discipline to do it. It's all in his routine. So now you're tying together a ton of habits, right? You're tying together a ton of pillars here. So in 2003, if you watch Kurt again on the left, he's going to roll right through his breath. He's not going to take one. He's out of control. To me, this is a major yellow light. And in 2004, he finishes his breath completely. Then he gets in the box. And the statistics, Matt, are staggering. Okay, look at this. 2000 and look at the stats. 2003 on the left, he's hitting 350, which is really good. 2 home runs, 28 RBIs. In 2004, he's hitting 500 with runners in scoring position, 42 for 84. He's national player of the year in all the major publications, second-round draft pick in 1 year. What was the difference? It wasn't strength and conditioning. He attacked that. It wasn't nutrition. He attacked that. It wasn't his teammate or belief. He attacked all that. It was his ability to be in control of himself and compete one pitch at a time by slowing the game down. So you have the self-control piece, and then discipline is you have to have the discipline to take the breath to slow yourself down. Yeah. You have to have the focus and awareness to know I'm in red, yellow lights, and I have to have something to go to get me back in control of myself. But one of my favorite videos ever is by Admiral William McRaven, right? He's the head of the Navy SEAL Special Operations. He's speaking at University of Texas. And you might want to put the link to that in the notes here.
For sure.
10 ways to change the world if you start by changing yourself. Have you seen this video?
I have. Make your bed, right?
First thing he talks about is making your bed, right? Why they're training the hardest guys on the planet, Navy SEALs, to make their bed. Because it shows you have discipline over yourself. It shows you pay attention to detail. And maybe the most fundamental and best mental performance strategy there is you're able to act different than how you feel. You're not going to feel like doing the work all the time. You're not going to feel like being positive all the time. You're not going to feel like working out every day. Do it anyway.
Yeah, and you talk about that particular, I don't know if you talk about the particular video, but I know you talk about the concept of making your bed in the book, if I remember correctly.
It's the start of your day, man. It's the first win you have of the day, right? And if you don't have the self-control and the discipline and the ability to control your mind and your actions to just make your bed when you wake up, like, when are you going to flip that switch and start? Probably never. Right.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely put that one in the show notes, because that's a fantastic video. I love that speech that he gave.
That's great.
So talking about self-control and discipline, and then this next one, the next pillar that you mentioned in the book is mental imagery and meditation. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was the 1% mental performance mastery tool, or what you called the 1% mental performance mastery tool. Tell us a little bit more about that and why that's so important.
Sure. So everybody talks about getting 1% better today. I mean, walk into any college football coaches meeting or any boardroom meeting, we're going to get 1% better every day. Well, okay, that's up in the clouds. Again, motivational speaker, that's not tangible.
Right.
You get tangible. And 1% better every day needs to be a seed in the ground that can grow in 1% of your day, right? If you take, there's 24 hours in a day times 60 minutes is 1,440 minutes. 1,440 minutes, 1% of that is 14 minutes and 24 seconds. So if your listener here is looking for one place to jump off and get started in developing the right mindset and mastering these concepts of mental performance, start with creating an intentional 14-minute and 24-second growth plan that you execute every day, whether you feel like it or not. In that 14-minute and 24-second growth plan, can combine many different things. So for example, for me this morning, it was read a page of the Daily Stoic, listen to Success Hotline podcast, go through a Brian Johnson Philosopher's Note Optimize +1, meditate for 10 minutes. That was my 14 minutes and 24 seconds. Some of my clients that I work with I will create them an audio that's 14 minutes and 24 seconds. And I go through a meditation, and it's kind of part meditation, part mental imagery. Here's what I see the difference as. Mental imagery is you're activating your mind, seeing yourself perform a way you want to perform. Meditation is I'm quieting my mind. Meditation is I'm trying to not think of anything. I'm just trying to connect to my breath or connect to something in the moment. Where mental imagery is I'm trying to put my mind on a goal or a task or something I'm trying to prepare for to achieve. So I'll often start with meditation to get the athlete or get the client into a quiet, calm, more present space. Some might say to speak into their subconscious. I don't get much into that, but then be able to then talk about mental imagery to be able to get them to intentionally see how they want their day to go or how they want their performance to go. I just was with one of the top college baseball programs in the country last week, and our plan was you're going to spend half of your 1424. So you're going to spend 7 minutes and 12 seconds in the morning sitting quiet by yourself and visualizing how you want your day to go. From how you're going to play to how you're going to eat to how you're going to interact with your friends or your girlfriend, and how you're going to sit in class, how you're going to answer questions. And then at night, you sit down for another 7 minutes and 24 seconds, 7 minutes and 12 seconds. And you go back through your day and you replay, how did my day go? What did I have success with? And I reinforce that. And where did I fall short? And I recorrect that. And now they're going through and they're starting their day, AM routine with visualization, and they're ending their day, PM routine with visualization. 14 minutes and 24 seconds total, 1% advantage.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I mean, talk about the awareness that you're creating, going back to one of the previous pillars, the awareness you're creating in your life and the self-control you're having to be able to do that stuff. I mean, that's huge, right? I mean, that's a fantastic starting point. If like you mentioned, if someone's wanting to go and start implementing this stuff right away, that's the place to start.
Great starting point. And Dr. Matt, it's the start that stops most people, man. People go, oh, I listen to all these podcasts. And I'm like, well, what are you doing with it?
Right.
And in my life at different times, I had the book, I had the goal to read a book a week. And for a year, and by the time I got to like the 5th week, I couldn't even remember the name of the first book, let alone be doing something with it.
Right.
So for the audience listening to this, stop listening to podcasts.
Yeah, apply them.
Listen to one many times, hopefully this one, and apply it. It doesn't matter how many podcasts you listen to. It matters what you do with what you listen to. So create a well, better, how. Create a start, stop, continue. Create your 1% daily plan. Start to map out, as I'm going to take what you're probably going to ask me next about is pillar 8, time management and organization.
Yep.
And how do you create a 168 plan? There's 168 hours in a week. Show me where they're all going. And if you can't show me where they're all going, then you're not going to give yourself the best chance to achieve your goals. And, Heisman Trophy winner, right? Kyler Murray. Check this out. So when he's at Oklahoma, he's a baseball player and a football player.
Yep.
He's the first round draft pick of the Oakland A's, 7th best player in the country. First round pick, signs for about $4 million. And he goes and wins the Heisman, and he's probably going to get drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, I hope. So he's right down the road as the first pick in the draft. Here's his day. And he maps out in a spring day where he's got a baseball game against the University of Texas and the spring football game. Here's his schedule for the day. But here's the thing, Matt, is the elite athletes, the elite clients I have, they go into every day with a schedule like this.
Yeah.
So Kirk Cousins, quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings now, was with the Redskins. He breaks his day out into 15-minute blocks. So if you're not valuing your time, you're not giving yourself the best chance for success. So the bottom line is that there's one factor that's the same for everybody, and that factor is time in a day.
Yep.
1,440 minutes in a day, 168 hours in a week. And if you feel like you don't have enough time to do what you want to do, that's not true. Time is a constant. You don't have the time management and organizational skills to do what you want to do. So stop complaining about time and start being productive about looking at what you're doing and eliminate the things that are suboptimal and spend more time doing the things that are going to move the needle for you. Business is a lot different than busyness. It's spelled the same, but it's a lot different, man.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. And you showed us earlier your 168 plan, right? And I mean, you saw that everything was mapped out right there on when you pulled it up earlier. Yeah, I mean, it's super important. And I mean, this is where, like, for me personally, I use, there's different journals and stuff that you can use to kind of help do that. And that's something I do every morning and every night, is going and looking at that piece and planning that piece out. That way, I know, I go into every day knowing what my goal is, knowing where my attention has to go, and able to accomplish it.
Totally. And again, for the listeners, this may be the first time they've ever even thought about some of these concepts, right? In your PM routine, part of your PM routine that you do before you go to bed is schedule your next day. So get started by planning tomorrow tonight. And when you wake up in the morning after you make your bed, look at your schedule and start attacking the day. And I map out every minute of the day, and sometimes it's in 40-minute blocks, and sometimes it's in 4-hour blocks. But when I put those blocks in that plan together, most days don't go exactly as planned. So you have to be able to compensate and adjust.
Right.
But once you're compensating and adjusting, you just take things that you don't get to and you slide them to another part of your day, or another day that week. So nothing falls through the cracks. It's like, if I'm supposed to write this article from 3 to 4, and we're still doing the podcast, it's now 3:30. Well, that article is not going to get done today. So I'm going to take that hour block that I was supposed to write this article, and I'm going to look at my 168 and go, when's the next hour I have available? I slide it there, and I don't even have to think about it. The attention residue disappears because it's on my calendar, and what you schedule, you get done.
Yeah, perfect. And then you start executing everything, and you're on your way to being that mental performance master, right?
That's the key, man. It's the missing link in all performance, not just athletic and human performance, business performance, and everything else. And, for people listening to this, I would highly encourage them to go to my website, briancain.com, click on the certification link, and get into the certification program, where I will hand walk you through how to coach yourself and others in these 10 pillars of mental performance mastery. And if people go through it, Dr. Matt, it's not for them. 100% money back guarantee. We're trying to impact 10 million lives here, not make $10 million. Because impact 10 million lives, you may make $10 million, which hopefully you then invest back into the certification to make it better, and invest into other opportunities for people to grow. But that's the goal. So if people listen to this and they get into it and it's not for them, we'll refund you. But I know this: if you've made it this far, the certification is for you. So head over to briancain.com and check out the certification. You won't be disappointed.
No, that's perfect. And being able to do that certification allows you to really help people in the last pillar one of the last pillars that you talk about, which is having that accountability partner, right? And building those routines and habits. And we talked about the routines and habits, but how important is it for this accountability partner?
It's everything.
Yeah.
That's why Navy SEALs have swim buddies.
Yeah.
So accountability is everything. And very few people are accountable to themselves. Most people are going to be more accountable just by being human beings and being social creatures. We're more accountable to others than we ever will be to ourselves. Some people can be very independent and accountable to themselves, but one of the biggest drivers that people have, when you start asking them about motivation and commitment, and asking them about, why they're doing what they're doing, and one of their big elements that motivates them to do what they need to do every day is that they don't want to let other people down. And that's powerful.
Yeah.
You want to use that. I don't want to let you down on this podcast. I don't want to let my teams down. You don't want to let me down as my doctor, right? You want to make sure I'm getting back out there and doing what I love to do. And that's powerful. So I think having accountability partners and, accountability partners that you sit down and you share with. So here's one of the things I had a call today with one of my clients, and he said, hey, I've got my accountability partner now. We sit every Sunday for 10 minutes, either in person if we can, or 10 minutes online. And we sit down with our MVP process in our 168, and we have to show each other how in the next week we're going to take things that are on our personal MVP process that we want to do, and we've got them scheduled, so we're making progress towards the best version of ourselves. And I was like, poof, that's high level.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I think we threw a lot of stuff. We definitely covered the 10 pillars. I think we threw a lot of stuff at people to start taking action on.
Threw a ton of people.
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you're interested in reading more about these in detail, I highly recommend Brian's book. I'll make sure to put a link for it in the show notes, as well as some of the documents that we went over today to kind of help organize everything. So, Brian, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with?
No, I think it's a start that stops most people, and it's been an honor. You know, the one thing I hope with every podcast that I do on either side of the microphone that I'm on, I have my own podcast, the Brian Cain Peak Performance Podcast, is I hope it's worth people's time. I hope I deliver value to be able to make it worth their time. And, you know, if they want more, they can go to briancain.com and get the certification. They can get on my newsletter. They can also check me out on social media, active on Twitter and Instagram. Brian Cain Peak, BrianCainPeak. Living here in Paradise Valley, Arizona, close to you, Doc. And if anybody is listening to this that's a patient of yours or a client of yours and is in Arizona and is looking to optimize and maximize and wants mental performance coaching, please hit me up through the website. I'd be honored to be able to get with you either them in person here in Arizona, or most of my clients are not in Arizona. They're all over the country, especially the guys that are here for spring training and then bounce throughout the season. So most of my work is done through Zoom, but it's always beneficial when you can do it in person.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm looking forward to working with you on some future stuff as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I appreciate the opportunity, man. Dominate your day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. You have a good one. Everyone, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Thank you.